Hey again, guys. I did promise a kind of special Canada's Great Except for the Zombies. Years ago, I was a private researcher, and that took me to a lot of really remote communities. But it also took me to really amazing locations. And sometimes those visits would coincide with something kind of different happening at those locations. Anyways, I had just finished the trip up to White Sands. I'd come back through Thunder Bay, and ended up going to Manitoulin Island. Um, Now, Manitoulin Island is really cool. I think it's the biggest freshwater island. It's not really in the middle of one of the Great Lakes, but it's in one of the Great Lakes. Um, it's pretty cool on its own. Um, but when you get there, there's a lot of unique stuff about Manitoulin. Like you have to cross the bridge to get there. Um, there's no franchises on Manitoulin Island. At least there wasn't when I was there. So like there's like a KFC and stuff like that. And I was traveling at night to get there to get to the hotel. Um, so I stopped off. I'd been told that there's not a lot of franchises, so things tend to close at like 8 o'clock and stuff like that in the towns. So if you're hungry, stop off before you get on the island. So I stopped off at I think a KFC or something like that. It was like 10 o'clock at night. And it was still super fucking busy. Anyways, I get to. Sorry if you can hear the wind and everything outside. I'm wearing the sweater because it's fucking cold here. Um, we had below 30 degrees, like minus 30 yesterday. I could see snow coming down. Fuck it. I have a hot cup of coffee, but I've had so much coffee that I'll probably start vibrating out of reality. But anyways, stopped off. I got to my hotel room. I was able to do a late check-in, which was great because it was like fucking 11 o'clock by the time I got there. Um, and the next day I went to Chigging, which, if you're gonna Google that shit, starts with an M, M apostrophe Chigging, but it's Chigging. Uh, did some interviews and shit like that there with community members. Um, I traveled around the island a lot during that trip, but there was just this one time I had kind of driven around the island. You can do the island like circumnavigate it in a day. It's not that difficult. It's a big island, but you stay on the main drag and it just basically goes around the outside. And I had come back and I was actually staying just outside Chigging. Um, and I got a call from one of the locals, and she said, "You got to come out and you got to see this thing." What I didn't realize is she was kind of what happens with the dealing with Department H and stuff like that is some locals are kind of like almost like union reps essentially. They're either read in or they've had shit happen to them, and they got read in, or they're like local contacts for sending me or the others to do shit in the community. Um, so she said, you got to come see. And when I had talked to her earlier that week, she had let me know that she knew, what I did. I almost want to say as a side hustle, but I don't get paid for it. So, but anyways, she calls me up and she says, you got to come see this thing. So, because I was there doing my research job, I don't really carry a lot when I'm just doing the regular jobs in the community. There's a minimum amount that I can carry because I'm usually having to fly, and Air Canada doesn't like it when you have a special pass to carry shit in your luggage, and it basically says, "Do not lose this luggage," or nothing fucking ever happens. So thankfully, they've never lost my luggage. Knock on wood. Anyways, grab my gear, get to the location, and it was like 15 minutes, just south of Chigging, so more towards the center of the island. One thing I should mention, when you get on the island, you kind of feel a little bit, if you're even remotely kind of sensitive to weird shit, you kind of feel a little different, kind of like um, you're walking in a statically charged environment, right? Really kind of a dry air feeling, even though you're surrounded by water. You feel like you could make sparks with your fingers. Um, but yeah, I got there, got to the location, and ended up meeting up with her. And what she tells me was basically she gathers, um, goes out, gets like I want to say sagebrush, but I don't remember any sagebrush. Probably sweetgrass and a few other things, um, bark, flowers, stuff like that for traditional medicines and everything. Um, and then she'll make things. I had been having issues with my hand at that time, so she had given me a little balm. Um, it smelled like bear grease, but I'm fairly certain it wasn't. I'm fairly certain there are no bears on Manitoulin, but don't quote me on that. Anyways, get out there. She'd been gathering, and she got to this one spot, middle of a field. You can see buildings in the distance. You're only about 15 minutes south of Chigang. There's a road that kind of comes up there, but there's this little hummock. And she was just kind of gathering in there. She had her headlamp on. She had some flashlights and everything with her, and she had these like catch bags, kind of like dump bags. And she was just going along and gathering a few things that were easier to spot at night, which always makes me think of people scorpion hunting with UV lights when I think of it. But anyways, she'd come up to this hummock, and just top of the hummock, something stood up. Now, something stood up is, like, what is it, the Mothman or the Owlman or the Frogman, right? You're wondering about that kind of shit. So she told me something stood up, and it was big, it was black, and I made the joke, racist, but yeah, anyways, she didn't really see it, but she said it kind of just like melted down and was gone. So she was, I think she was Ojibwa, if I remember correctly. She might have been half Ojibwa and half Blackfoot. I can't remember exactly. But like her family had kind of been, I'm trying to remember the term, and my Ojibwa sucks, so I'm not even going to try and say it. But basically, like, beyond medicine gatherers, and they would carry. Oh, if any of you know the term, because it's just jumped out of my head. There's an Ojibwa term. There's not a Anishinaabe term. There's basically kind of like medicine woman. Sometimes it would be in deer skin. You'd carry medicines in there, and it was for, like shamanic purposes or healing purposes. And I cannot remember. I want to just say bundle carriers, but I know that's not quite right. Anyways, her family, the women in her family, had done that for years. So when she saw this thing just kind of melt, she thought maybe be a good idea to bring someone else out who had funky experiences. Now, hadn't really dealt with anything quite like this before, so when I got out there, I had my standard stuff, my little inner tube filled with salt and a few other things. And if you don't remember why I used an inner tube filled with salt, go watch the Frozen Scales one. That'll help you out. Anyways, yeah, so I got there, and I really had my go bag. And as I'm walking towards her, she parked her car on the side of the road. She was standing by it. As I'm walking towards her, have you ever had the sensation of someone right beside you, but there's no one there? That was essentially what this was. And I'm going to reach for something. So what the fuck was that? Basically, is going through my head. And I get to her, and I was like, "Did you? Was there something beside me? Because there was nothing there when I looked." She goes, "I've been feeling that all evening," and now this is actually something she gave me after the fact. She was sitting there, and she was actually just kind of stripping leaves off of some of the flowers and everything with this rather adorable little burl knife that she gave me. But while she was doing it, like sparks. Remember how I said like dry environment, like statically charged? There were little sparks coming off of it, but they were kind of red and blue rather than bright white and blue. It was just kind of weird. And I had asked her about that. I said, "Does that have anything to do with why you're all sparkly?" And I didn't mean to say it that way, but she just kind of looked at me. She's like, "Sparkly," and she's doing the thing. She looks down. And she realized what I was talking about, and pauses for a second. She goes, "You know, it might actually have to do with that. I don't know, but anyways, she grabs. I'm just gonna call it a medicine bundle because that's kind of the way I was raised with it. But she grabs her medicine bundle, and we go out a little bit further towards the hummock. And there's just like there's wild grass, and you can kind of smell clover, and there's a lot of smells and everything that are just kind of sweet and kind of cloying, but nothing overpowering. But we get about halfway towards the ridge of the hummock, and the smells kind of changed, and it went from really sweet and kind of a little cloying to that rotten smell that you get with when something's died, basically. Still cloying, but a lot more pungent, and so I immediately thought Zeds. And with me, I had the extendable baton at the time, so I clacked that out. I was already wearing my headlamp. She had her headlamp on, and we just kind of started scanning around. And there's this little kind of rustle. And we look up to where the noise is coming from, and it's just slightly below the top of the hill. And the headlamps aren't catching anything. We can't see anything, but I turn my head a little bit to the side, and something fucking doesn't stand up, doesn't come out of the ground, it just is there. I turn my head back towards it, and as the headlamp goes over it, there's nothing there. So, confused as fuck, I cover my headlamp, and just from the diffuse light of hers, there's something fucking standing there. So, kind of freak out. I touch her on the arm, and I say, "Don't move your headlamp, but turn your eyes towards the ridge." And with my left hand, I turn off my light, and I've been looking at it. The headlamp's on it. Can't really see it. Turn off my light, and there's something, this like shadow shape thing is there. And she goes, "Oh, that's what I saw." All of a sudden, this thing, I don't really know how to describe it. But basically, if it's standing up like this, it goes like this and overtops us. No sound, but it looked like a big black sheet that was like, I don't know, about that thick, 6 feet wide-ish, 2 people wide, 2 or 3 people tall, and it just kind of hoofs over us. And we hear nothing, just woof. Spin around because I fully anticipate something standing behind me. This is like Babadook shit. I fully anticipate someone standing behind me, and I raise the baton and nothing. Now, my headlamp's got red light, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe. So I click over to the red light. So, bright lights on this side, red lights on this side, just in case you're wondering why I'm touching different parts of my fucking head. No, I can't remember brain. Anyways, turn on the red lamp, turn around, fucking nothing. Turn back to the hill, and something starts kind of creeping towards us. Now, this I'm used to. It's a shambler. It's a rotter. It's basically there's something dead that's been reanimated and it's coming towards us. Okay, that I can deal with. Weird shadow thing, no fucking clue. But so, sorry, her name was Jenny. Just in case you're wondering, her name was Jenny. I'm not gonna tell you her last name, just guys, don't bug her. Anyways, I tapped Jenny, and I'm like, okay, well, there's a shambler. I'm gonna go take care of him. Um, you know, stay here, keep your lamp on, and I'll go take care of this. So I go up towards the shambler. Shamblers aren't fast. Shamblers aren't your fast zombies. And I know people hate fast zombies, and I fucking hate them too. But yeah, start walking towards it. It's been dead for a while. There's not a lot of meat left on the bones. Shit's sloughing off. One good thwack, done. Throw a little bit of salt on it just to make sure that anything's dissipated. But as soon as the salt hits it, it actually started kind of just sloughing away. I don't think of anything beyond, okay, this hasn't happened before. I'm going to have to write this shit down. And I turn around and take a look at Jenny, and where she's standing, right fucking next to her, is the shape. I have no idea what's going on. And I go, Jenny, can you feel something next to you? And she goes, yes. I'm like, there's something next to you. Don't move. And so I walk towards her slowly. I don't know what this thing is. It hasn't really acted hostile. It's just fucking weird. Quick little glance all around me. Shambler's gone. There's just bones on the ground, and they're starting to kind of calcite? Not calcify, because that's growing up. They're breaking down. Like, if you've ever thrown, like, chicken bones or something like that into the fire, afterwards they just kind of crumble down. They're doing that. I start walking towards Jenny. My hands are, I still have my club in my hand, but my hands are at my side. And she's got that little knife in her hand. This little knife. And I'm just like, Jenny, don't do anything. Just stay where you are, and I'll come to you. About 3 meters or so at this point. And I'm like, Jenny, try and take a step to your left. So away from this thing. She takes a step, it takes a step. I'm like, okay, well, it's there. All right. What the fuck are you? At this point, I'm kind of getting annoyed. And also, sorry, something in my throat. I'd also had a bit of a day, longer day. My interviews had started early in the morning. This was like 10 o'clock at night. It's mid-October. When I was driving around, no, it's late October. Because when I was driving around, there was snow coming in. And I remember it wasn't quite November, but yeah. Anyways, it was late October. Snow had already come in. It's cold. Anyways, like, just, stay where you are. I don't know what this thing is. What are you? What the fuck are you? And I'm cranky. Doesn't say anything. But a breeze comes across, and you can just kind of see the grass moving. All the hair on the back of my neck fucking stands up. And I had a whole lot more hair on the top of my head at that point. But it was just everything on the back of my neck fucking stands up. And I'm thinking to myself, like, is that its answer? What the fuck? It was weird shit. And my weird shitometer's just going off the chart at this point. I'm like, Jenny, do you have any idea what this could be? And she's like, I don't know, but I'm feeling warm. I'm not feeling cold. I'm not scared. I'm like, okay. Like, it's really hard to kind of give the sensation to you guys about, like, how I started feeling at that moment. I realized that I was tired. I was cranky. But I wasn't cold anymore. The wind had kind of raised the hair on my neck, but there was no shiver going down my back. So I asked it again. I'm like, what are you? Who are you? And another little bloof of wind, and you can kind of see the trees just by the roadside are kind of swaying a bit. Now there's birch trees, I think poplar trees, elms, oaks, everything on there. Didn't matter how thick they were, they all kind of swayed a little bit. So, trees this big, yeah, sure, I expect them to blow in the wind. Trees this big, I don't expect them to sway in the wind. Yeah, their branches should move. The trees moved. So, I'm like, Jenny, start walking towards me. Because I wanted to see if this thing was going to get closer to me. Jenny can get closer to me. Let's see if this thing gets closer to me. And she's still holding on to this little thing. And, it's really fucking adorable, but you're not really going to shank someone with this. You could, but what is it really going to do? But I'm like, start walking towards me. Still got this thing in her right hand. And she starts walking towards me. Now, this thing stays where it is. Okay. Does it like her and not like me? What's going on here? Are we not vibing? Am I not making supernatural friends here? Admittedly, that's not really my job. Kind of the opposite at that point. But yeah, so it stays where it is. Jenny walks the rest of the distance to me, and I'm like, you could probably put your knife away. She puts it in the sheath, and she's like, okay. She turns and she says, now, fuck. I was trying to remember exactly how she worded it, but she spoke in Ojibwa, and I heard it in English and French. Now, sometimes that shit'll happen. Someone will say something in one language, and if you understand a language or two languages, or heaven help you if you understand more than that, because I'm fucking confusing. It's 8 languages here. I heard it in Korean and Japanese and Swedish and German and English and French and Spanish and Portuguese. That would just drive me nuts. Anyways, she said it in Ojibwa, and I heard it in English and French. So, pardon me if I don't get the words quite right, but yeah. She asked it its name. I asked, who are you and what are you? She asked it its name. She also, the way she said it sounded really kind of, I'll give you an example. In Japanese, gomenasai, sorry, can you give me your name? That kind of thing, kind of apologetic, very respectful. The way it came across was very respectful. That was the word I was looking for, was respectful. Gomenasai, wakarimasen, watashi gaijin desu. No, I wouldn't hear it in Japanese. Anyways, she said it, and it was like the whole hummock sighed. Poof, thing gone. Not puff of smoke, not whoosh over top of us. Nothing like that, just gone. Turn to Jenny, I'm like, okay, what was that? She's like, let's go back to town. She hops in her car, I follow her in mine. Now, I hadn't seen any other shamblers, and this was the weirdest thing that had happened to me up to that fucking point. Go back to town, follow her, and we go to her grandmother's place. Her grandmother sees Jenny's face, invites us in. Her grandmother then proceeds to tell us the story of the Manitou of Manitoulin Island. Manitou, big spirit. What's something that's kind of similar, like a genus loci, something that inhabits and is an area at the same time. So not quite like Mothman and Owlman and Frogman, where they're, something from that region, but more like something that is that region. First Nations beliefs, a lot of them involve everything having an anima, a spirit. all my relations doesn't necessarily just mean, you know, um, literally all the people. It means all the everything. So her grandmother, while serving us tea and cookies, because apparently that's just the way, um, tells us about the Manitou of Manitoulin Island and how she also felt something like that when she was a lot younger, when she was walking around, and what she came upon was something. Nobody seems to be able to describe this thing. Like, just, it's a presence, a black presence. And she said she never really saw it during the daytime. She only saw it at night. She didn't see it at the hummock. She saw it out towards, like, there's little lakes in, there's lakes in an island in a lake, which is kind of cool when you think of it. She saw it when she was like fishing near there, or when she was like getting cattails and stuff like that. And whenever she saw it, she always felt the need to like go away from that area. And like one time, I guess there was a forest fire, and another time where she had been standing on the lake shore. The ground underneath gave way and just kind of sloughed into the lake. So she was very protective of the Manitou of Manitoulin Island. And the more she told me about this thing, and the more I started thinking, like, did it show itself to Jenny to take care of the Shambler? Was the Shambler not supposed to be there? What had caused the Shambler? By the way, none of these fucking questions ever get answered. As much as I'd love to be a great storyteller and tell you, oh yeah, no, I found out that there was a sorcerer living on Manitoulin Island. No, literally, Nanny is telling us about the Manitou of Manitoulin Island, and that's about it. Next day, I'm scheduled to drive to Toronto, Sudbury, actually. So I've got to leave at like 7 in the morning because it's not a super long drive, but you know, I got to be in Sudbury for like noon, and I want to eat. So I've got all my stuff packed up, checked out of the hotel room early, and Jenny literally goes, she's there. She was seeing me off, and she hands me a little package of cookies from Nana. I was like, yay, cookies. And she hands me this thing. I was like, why? She goes, don't know. Nana says I should give it to you. So gives me this little thing, which is awesome. It's actually still sharp. I haven't sharpened this in, what are we looking at? Like 12 years now? Haven't sharpened it, and it's still ridiculously sharp. So maybe it's a supernatural knife, but I never take it anywhere. This thing just stays home. But yeah, the Manitou of Manitoulin Island. Like I said, I'd love to tell you that, you know, we found out why there was a Shambler or anything like that, or why I was on the island, or why Jenny was shown anything. Talked to her since then, since she's read in, you know, I'm allowed to tell stories and shit like that. Couldn't tell you what the fuck happened. But yeah. I don't know. Anyways, Manitoulin Island's actually fucking gorgeous. If you ever get a chance, go there. Like I said, I stayed just outside Chigang. There's, if I remember correctly, another nice settlement. Chigang's kind of up here. It's another nice settlement down here. But it was just more convenient for me to stop in Chigang, drive around, meet all the people I needed to meet, and go out. But yeah, Manitoulin's awesome. Go there if you can. Maybe you'll see the Manitou of Manitoulin. If you do, and you feel the need to vacate the area you're in, go for it. If you feel the need to go towards, yeah, just be respectful, I guess. But yeah, I know, not one of my normal stories where I'm telling you about Zeds and the amazing things that happened, but yeah, just weird as shit. Kind of cool at the same time, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, thanks for listening, and remember, Canada's great, except for the zombies.